You're listening to the Ignite the Frame podcast.
So today I'm hoping we can kind of cover, since you've, produced and interviewed many people before over, 25 years, you've probably come across some nervous people in your day.
Yeah, a couple. It's pretty common. We do a lot of work with people that are real people, not actors, not performers, not media trained, and that's a real thing. People get nervous. It's not fun being on camera sometimes for some people. So, and I can relate. I don't really love. I mean, even being here, it's like, hey, this is weird. I'm in front of a camera, so
yeah.
I can speak firsthand to what that's like and empathize a little bit with people. I still put them on camera and make them do what we need to do, but it's pretty common.
So why would we use nervous people? Why would we use real people?
That's something that I get asked a lot when we're having early conversations about projects.
Yeah.
Is why would we use someone who's nervous in a video as opposed to someone who has experience or is a professional, actor or performer? I think the main reason for me is that they're real people. And I would rather see a real person at an organization or a business doing their job or talking about what they do than someone who's just a trained performer. Because you can usually tell if someone's a trained spokesperson, a trained performer or actor, or if they're not.
Yeah.
And there are times we do use actors where it's appropriate, for example, getting lifestyle footage of something. It's sometimes easier to use a real person that you can, direct and that's familiar with being on camera. But a lot of times, we interview people and we talk to people, and they're real people. And I like the authenticity of that.
Sure.
It takes a good bit of work to get a good performance sometimes, a good clips. But I think it ultimately it resonates with the audience. I think people look at it and they go, yeah, that's like, even if the person's not super polished on camera, it's a real person that they're looking at. And I think that's important. I think especially in an age of AI and an age of, stock photo, stock video, to see a real person and connect them with an organization, with a business is really important. I think that matters. And that's why we use real people.
Yeah.
In a lot of scenarios, maybe not every scenario, but a lot of scenarios.
I do find sometimes that our clients are pretty stickler for, if it's a university, it needs to be one of our students, finding that authentic voice as well.
Yeah, that's really important. That's important.
How do you prep people before they go on camera, knowing they're not a professional, knowing that they don't have media experience? How do you prep them?
Yeah, that's something that I think over the years I've learned a bit about, and you get a bit of a sense of sort of how to help people feel relaxed. It's something I've always cared a lot about, just speaking from personal experience, because I don't like being in front of people. I don't like being on camera. And I can really empathize with people. So we try to really make people feel comfortable. And there's a few things that we do. The biggest thing is preparing people. So talking to them ahead of time, even just a Zoom call or a phone call before a shoot day, so that we've had a chance to explain what we're doing. How, even just things like crew size, because some people think, they're coming with a phone and they're going to shoot something. And that's like a common comment. Oh, there's a lot of stuff and a lot of setup and there's lights and there's cameras and people.
Yeah.
So just preparing them that, this is a little bit bigger than maybe they're expecting, and helping them understand what content we're going to be capturing, if they need to say something, if it's an interview, going through interview questions. Oftentimes with interview questions, we'll have, at least some talking points, even if it's not a scripted answer, because we don't usually script answers. But if we have talking points laid out, then they can be prepared. This is what I should be talking about, and feel a little more confident. Oftentimes we're talking to people though that do have some expertise in their subject. So at least what they're speaking about is in their wheelhouse, and it's not, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Why am I talking?
Yeah.
It gets tricky when it's someone who doesn't really know what they're talking about. That's really difficult.
Yes.
So preparing them well ahead of time. And then when we show up to actually shoot something, making sure they're comfortable, making sure that, they have wardrobe or clothing that makes them feel confident and like they look their best, sometimes we'll have makeup artists there. That really helps a lot oftentimes.
Yeah.
In two ways. One, it actually makes people look good on camera.
Yeah.
And two, we have a couple makeup artists that we work with, and their great skills are making people feel relaxed and working with them, so that they often come away saying, "Oh, that was really good. It was a good experience having makeup done." And it's not glamour makeup. It's not, we get guys in particular worried about that, how they're going to look after makeup, but it really, makes people look their best and feel very confident. So that makes a big difference. And then just reminding people, when we have them in front of the camera, this isn't live TV. We're not trying to find an angle. We're not trying to expose them or something like that. We want to work with them to get really good content and make sure that they're represented well. I remind people regularly too, like we don't get called back if we don't do a good job.
Yeah.
We have an interest in making them look really good,
Yeah.
and making them feel relaxed. And for a lot of people, it's a big experience. They're not in front of a camera all the time.
Yeah.
I would rather take the time to make sure it's a great experience for someone and make sure that, they enjoy it. So that at the end of the day, they remember it as a good experience, because that matters a lot.
Yeah.
Rather than just pushing through and, trying to rush and get the shot as quick as we can and move on.
I have a question for, why don't we use typically scripted content for people who are nervous, for people who aren't used to being on camera? Why is that usually not our go-to?
The main reason is you get a more authentic, which is a buzzword that I kind of hate, but I use it because it's an accurate word for it. But you get a more authentic performance or delivery from someone if it's not scripted.
Yeah.
If they're reciting lines, many people, not all, but many switch into this mode where they're just reading something.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to break away from that and deliver it as though it's a natural response.
Yeah.
So I think that is a big challenge with people to be able to deliver things in a really natural way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the main reason I don't go with scripted content. Yeah. That being said, when we do have something where someone has to look into a camera and speak, we'll sometimes or often use a teleprompter because that does help people get through something. They don't have to memorize sections of script. Yeah. But that's probably the only exception where we would generally script something. That's usually, we have a minute of dialogue or 2 minutes of dialogue that they have to deliver. Some industries we work in, like healthcare, for example, are very regulated, so they have to be very precise with their wording. You can't kind of mess around with wording. There's key things that have to be said. But yeah, having people speak from the heart is so important. It gives much more emotion and
makes a big difference in the delivery, and
it really does. Yeah,
connection with the audience as well.
And you can always do multiple takes. You can ask people to rephrase things, to do it again, but shorter or longer or whatever, depending on what how they're sounding.
Yeah. One of the other questions I wanted to ask was, someone is listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I have to be that person, that nervous person in front of the camera. Yeah. What are some tips that I can come away with and take with me on my shoot day? How can I look less nervous?
The reality is that most people don't look as nervous as they feel. Yeah. Oftentimes you feel more anxious or more uncomfortable in front of a camera than you actually look. Yeah. And it's hard to kind of break away from that mentally and not be conscious of that. But if you can remind yourself that, I'm the one that feels this, but it doesn't look that way to everyone else, that helps. A little bit of experience helps too. I find, the first time someone steps in front of a camera, they're usually quite nervous.
Yes.
But then usually people relax a little bit. Some aren't nervous at all. Some people are weird and just, are comfortable doing anything.
They love doing it.
But lots of people, the vast majority of people that we've filmed over the years are nervous. And usually once they see themselves, they go, oh, that's not too bad. Like I did okay. They're usually the reaction that I would say probably 80% of the time the reaction is, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. They warmed up a bit. Sometimes just even having them in front of a camera for a few minutes, looking back at the footage and having them realize, oh yeah, okay, I don't look too bad on camera. I'm not that nervous. I feel natural helps. So that's a great way to, if you have to do something in front of a camera, if you're very nervous about it, set up your phone or get someone to set up a camera and record you for a little bit and just practice a little bit. The other major thing I would say to people is know your content. If you're speaking about something, really understanding what you're talking about is so critical. If you go into it and you're not comfortable with what you're saying, not only are you nervous because you're in front of a camera, you're nervous because you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it really, really shows then.
It definitely does. And that's something that I think if you can really work at knowing what you're going to say and feeling really comfortable with your material, that'll really, really help and make it look a lot better.
I do find even organizations who are choosing people who don't have media experience, they're passionate about it. If they're passionate about the topic, then that will show through more.
Yeah.
And, the nervousness will take a back seat as well because they'll just be so excited to be talking about it.
For sure. And that, and passion and that can look different ways. Some people are passionate in a quiet way. They know their stuff and they know what they're talking about. Yeah. Some are very loud and, outgoing about it.
Yeah.
But being passionate about what you're talking about and what you do will certainly go a long way.
There's always this awkward time before we start actually rolling and we're checking some things. The interviewee is in the hot seat already. They're already starting to sweat. And you're interviewing them. How do you distract them from that awkward silence at the beginning to make them not overthink?
Yeah, that can be tricky because it's really easy to get sort of up in your head about things.
Yeah.
I know when I'm interviewing someone, I'll often just try to engage them in conversation. Mm-hmm. Most people like talking about themselves, what they do, and just asking them some questions. And sometimes I'll just say, "Hey, I'm just curious, like genuinely curious about what you do." And I am like by nature, I think, fairly curious about people and their jobs and what they do and how businesses work and how organizations function and all that stuff. So, asking those questions and getting people talking really helps. Not just leaving them to sort of sit there as everyone kind of buzzes around them is really important.
Yeah.
I think that if someone can be engaged with them, that really will help people kind of relax and feel like, oh yeah, I can talk and be free and to kind of share my thoughts and that. The other thing that I'll often do is not have like a formal start to an interview. Sometimes we'll just kind of go into it. We try to make the technical side of it seem a little bit more seamless. Yeah. So, it's not like everyone's sitting there waiting and quiet and all that. Whereas, it's on a film set or television set, it would be very sort of formal. When you're rolling because everyone's told and there's a bell and you're quiet and it's really obvious.
This is your moment.
Yeah, and you have to like really perform. But I find sometimes just easing in interviews, especially ones where like we've done some over the years where it's a very emotional story for somebody, and just like kind of quietly like we get rolling and Dave, our sound guy, will he'll be rolling and the camera will be rolling. We'll just kind of start into it and you can look and acknowledge, we're good, we're rolling, we're set, without having to make a big deal of it. And then it helps people a little bit, just kind of like, oh yeah, is this it? Are we and sometimes people say that, are we doing the interview or not? But
wait, that's it.
Just trying to help people, relax and feel kind of comfortable that way is really important.
Yeah, and we do a lot of times do more of a conversational style, so they don't have to be looking into the lens as well. And that really helps being able to see a person as opposed to looking into a lens. That can be a lot more daunting as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, looking into a lens talking is a very different experience than being interviewed because all of a sudden you've got a camera right in your face and it's harder to look at lens and be comfortable.
For sure. How do you structure your interview for someone who, like, you kind of clearly see they're nervous, they've got the jitters? Do you do the hard questions first, or you do them a little bit later?
That's a tough question. I don't know if I have a specific formula on that.
Yeah.
I'll maybe feel that out a little bit depending on the person.
Yeah.
Most people, like, again, this isn't data, but this is just kind of my experience. I would bet 80% or more get better as they go.
Yeah.
After a few minutes, they warm up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes, I guess I would probably start with easier questions that I think they can really, nail to just get them going, get people comfortable that there's a camera there and we're doing this. And then come to the harder questions. If there's something that sometimes, depending on the person, you can tell they just want to get the tough thing out of the way first.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the more difficult question. But I don't know if I don't know that that's a hard and fast rule. I think it's really like, I think being kind of in tune with sort of what's happening in the room and how people are feeling.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's just kind of talking to people, asking them how they're feeling, and just, being a human and relating to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, as much as possible to talk to people a bit before they're in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Some shoots that's easier than others. Yeah, exactly. Because it builds a relationship. Then when they sit down to talk to you, it's not like, step into the spotlight sort of thing. It's like, okay, we're here and we've moved the conversation over here and now there's lights and cameras and
just
and
ignore all of those.
Just ignore it, which is, sometimes hard to do, but I think usually people do better once they've warmed up a bit.
Yeah.
So we'll often come back to things, we'll
that first
do
question.
some questions, then we'll come back to it one way or another.
Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people kind of go off the rails, and you kind of have to feel that out a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of thing where you have to see, like, how much do you push someone, especially when they're nervous.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think, okay, I don't think we're going to get anything else better, and I don't want to push to the point where someone's like either upset or frustrated. Because when someone gets flustered, it's really difficult to kind of pull that back and get back to a focused state when there's a camera in your face.
So when you see that someone's getting flustered, we've maybe done this question 3 times and they're not getting it, they're not remembering what they want to say, or they're not saying it how they want. Would you just go on to the next question and come back to it, or would you take a break, or what do you find is like the best methods?
Yeah. Sometimes moving on is good, and then coming back to it. It really depends on the scenario, because some scenarios you have to get that content from that person.
Yeah.
In which case, usually moving on and then coming back to it's a good solution. Sometimes, you'll say to people, hey, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is kind of what we're looking for here. Is this something you can say? There's a big difference too between something that's maybe a little more documentary style versus something that's marketing. If it's marketing and the person's sitting there and they're a sales manager or something like that, they're going to expect that, hey, the company wants me to say this, or this is what fits with our brand.
Yeah.
If it's something like maybe it's a nonprofit and someone telling their story, you can't be nearly as specific and tell people what to say.
Yeah.
You can have ideas of what you want them to say and try to help get them to that point. But I think too, you have to really kind of weigh up the person in the scenario. Sometimes there's cases where we get into an interview with someone and we realize we're not going to get what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And in a case like that, you have to think, okay, is there someone else we can get to answer this?
Yeah.
How critical is it if we don't have it? Can we convey this information another way? Because there's definitely times there where that happens. One of the things we'll often do is overlap content so that we have more than one person speaking about something or speaking to a specific point. And that way, if someone isn't as strong as someone else, you've got something else to use. You've got another option. Sometimes too, someone will say something and then someone else will say the similar thing, but a lot better, or sometimes worse. And then you can
more succinct.
Yeah, you can choose. Okay, or weave the two together. So you have one person start a thought and one person finish. So it's really nice to have those options in editing, but it's also a really helpful way of just kind of approaching an interview so that you're not relying on one person. Where that becomes really important too is in a case where you're talking about like nonprofits.
Yeah.
You might have someone who's a volunteer or a client.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're dealing with people that are in maybe more vulnerable positions.
Yes.
And you
Gotta
can't
be really careful.
Yeah, and you can't take someone who's maybe in a more vulnerable place and sit them down and say, this is what you need to say because the organization needs this for marketing.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get to, but you have to really be sensitive to who you're interacting with, and that you might not be able to get that from them.
And that's something that can be taken care of in pre-interviews as well, right? When you're trying to suss out who you think you could work with on camera as well, that
Definitely.
There's some big indications always there as well, right?
Definitely. Sometimes you find that out ahead of time that, hey, I don't think this person will be great. I've had many scenarios over the years where someone from the client side, from an organization or business has said, hey, I don't think this person's going to be great, or just a heads up, they're really nervous, or I don't know if they'll work out. And I find the majority of times they're wrong, and they do.
Yeah.
People usually do a lot better than you're expecting.
Yeah.
That being said, sometimes that is the case, and you get in there and you go, oh, that was really a rough interview.
Yeah.
We don't have much to work with.
Yeah. And I think it really does come down to, are you an expert or like really familiar with the topics that we're going to be covering? If it's your own story, you've lived it, you know it.
Yes.
And once you get past that first question, I find it can get easier. You're kind of thinking more about your content that you're saying, as opposed to there's lights in my face, there's a camera in my face, there's a mic,
People relax after a little while, and it gets a little bit easier. And the vast majority of the time, people come away from an interview saying, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought, or that was okay, or
that's it.
I
That's
surprised
all you
myself.
needed
It wasn't too bad. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oftentimes people are surprised how short an interview is too.
Yeah.
That even if it is a long interview, it still feels short.
Yeah.
Probably because you're, nervous and that. But
awesome. Thank you.
No
This
problem.
has been good.
It's good to talk about this. It's an important topic, and definitely affects the outcome of a good video. So
For sure. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to our conversation today. We'd love it if you'd follow and give us a rating. The Ignite the Frame podcast was produced by Atomic Spark.